This episode of the Closeout Bodyboarding podcast is proudly presented to you by limited edition fins. Shane, I've always wanted to know, what's the big difference between the original limited edition fins and the new Psylocke fins?
Benny, the Psylocke fins are bigger and wider than the original LE foot pockets. So basically when you try them on, they'll actually be a size up. Psylocke's fit really well in half sizes to the original fins. So I used to not be able to fit into the larges in the original LE fins, but I fit perfectly into the Psylocke large. So I just recommend everyone, if you weren't comfortable in the original LEs, go in and try on a new Psylocke's.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Back to you in the studio. Welcome back to the Closeout Bodyboarding podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Benny Oborn, and joining me for a bit of a live update on what's going on with one of the biggest events on the bodyboarding calendar in 2025, the Shark Island Challenge. Welcome back, Lukey O'Connor. How are you, brother?
Man, thanks so much for having me, Benny. Appreciate having you on, and it's always good catching up and mulling over things, mate. How you been?
Mate, I've been busy. Well, this month I'm busy, next month I'm not busy. It's a bit of a roller coaster with life, but you know what? We get through it and we focus on all the good positive things like bodyboarding.
100%. And I believe you are going to the Cooks in a month's time. Is that one of the positive things we're focusing on at the moment?
That's definitely one of the positive things, mate. Much to my wife's disgust. She's not happy about it, but I feel like I'm just going to wear the brunt when I return. It's a long overdue trip, mate. I haven't been back in a few years. So, yeah, really looking forward to catching up with some of my good mates over there. Fingers crossed we get some good swell. I know the weather will be great. But, big shout out to Pete, Pocky. My good friends Junior and Sarah, who I'll be staying with, and then Brendo and Danny over in Utatucky. Cannot wait to catch up with those guys and have some good times.
Oh, man, honestly, I almost want to join you after seeing that Tension 11's outtake clip, the behind-the-scenes stuff that Whitey's just recently dropped with the whole crew over there, Louis and Jack and Anthony Miller and all that. It looked to die for. And you kind of, you do forget from time to time how fun that place can get and just how many different bowls and barrels and just crystal blue aqua water there is over there. It looks paradise, eh?
Well, it is. And it is so underrated. Underrated in the sense that I think the waves are so designed for bodyboarding over there, and the benefit of that is it keeps that mainstream surf media away. I vaguely remember Globe doing a surf trip over there. This would be like 10 years ago, right? And they did a little clip, and they blatantly rode the place off in the clip. They were like, this place sucks. It's no good. We're out of here. And I was like, holy heck, like big call. I was like, oh, well, it's great for us.
Unbelievable for you guys. It almost kind of showed to maybe back in the day the different, trajectories bodyboarding and surfing can be on. And I think in the last 5 or so years, it's kind of come back a little bit with, surfing catching up with, the insane barrel riding and airs that they're doing. And now looking at bodyboarding in like a different light to then maybe back then. And you know what I mean? How like the different kind of landscape change with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's almost like a race in a non-competitive way, right? It's each sport kind of leverages off each other and goes to the next kind of height. And then, the other kind of side of it copies and boosts. It's great. It's great for both sports, really.
For sure. But keep the sticks out, mate. Lids only. Giddy up.
Mate, let's get down to business. Mate, obviously, we're in the heat of the waiting period. You guys put some big news up the other day. We're on alert, but mate, can you get us up to date with that? And then once we've covered that, I want to kind of step back and I want to have a little bit of chat about the trials. There's some big news from that in terms of the guys that are now going to be seeded into the event, which is super exciting as well.
So we did make the orange alert call on Friday the 16th. It is now Monday the 19th. And over that time period, unfortunately, there was a downgrade in the swell over the last 72 hours. We've been working heavily with SwellNet. The lovely boys over there, Stu, Craig and Steve, do some amazing work on swell forecasting all up and down the coastline of Australia. And I've got to give those fellas a huge shout out, because really without them crunching the data behind the scenes, we would be kind of left in the dark. And as you would know, reading charts as an avid bodyboarder, like all of us do, you're only seeing numbers on page sometimes. You can check synoptic charts, you can look at, live WAMs, you can take all that information in, but unfortunately you don't, all of us really don't have that trained eye that a trained meteorologist does when coming to decipher those sort of systems. And they were quite keen on Friday. They did say that this coming week, Thursday and Friday, so the 22nd and 23rd of May, look to have potential for a really chunky east-south-east swell coming out from forming out in the Tasman in between the East Coast and New Zealand. The biggest thing was that it needed to stall in a certain position and have favourable offshore winds coming behind it with a high, or at least have the southern flank of that low then allow southwest winds to caress the East Coast, especially the Sydney Basin region during that time period. Unfortunately, as the updates ran from Friday into Monday, over that 72-hour period, Mark, Sam and myself were drinking ourselves into misery during those hours, because we could see the swells constantly, the charts, constantly downgrading. It became more of a short wind period, swell from 10 to 12 seconds, kind of more to like the 9 to 10 seconds. And the winds became doggedly onshore. Unfortunately, the low formed further north. It had a huge southeast infeed right over Sydney, and there was no way that we were going to be able to capitalise on the maximum swell height with prevailing offshore winds. So we've had to call it. We've let all the riders and our production team and staffing teams know that we are now looking possibly for a southeast swell, which might be fluky and a low percentage swell at the moment, but still something to make note on the 28th to the 30th of May. That's next Friday and Saturday. So we'll just keep watching that at this current stage. We are still on orange alert till the 1st of May, the 1st of June, sorry. But we're probably just going to put our heels up, so to speak, and make sure we keep studying these charts and keep everyone in the loop with live updates on our social media pages. And, via all the good podcasts, like the Closeout podcast. And, just see how we go. But, at this stage, unfortunately, we've had to scale back our expectations, and we're looking to look for another swell.
I really want to kind of just simplify this, because that is a lot of, information for, I think, probably the average bodyboarder to really take in. I think most bodyboarders, when they're looking at SwellNet or whatever other wave forecasting site they use, generally they're looking at just like swell direction and most of all like wind direction and maybe tide. And they're the three things that most bodyboarders are really going to look at to go, okay, there's a fair chance I'm going to get waves. That's not the case for Shark Island. There are so many more factors that come into play. Do you want to just once again recap what the ideal conditions are that you're looking for Shark Island?
Yeah, for sure. The ideal conditions, swell direction-wise, you'd be probably looking from anywhere from, say, 100 degrees all the way to maybe like 110, 115. Obviously, that's a very small portion of the direction that you would ideally want coming out of the Tasman. And unfortunately, we don't get those directions that often because of our, beautiful brothers and sisters across the ditch, New Zealand. They've been great for us in many a war, long live the Anzac, but fuck, they've blown out a couple of swells from us with their landmass out there.
Cheer, boys, cheer.
Yeah, sure. Full credit to them. No, but honestly, it's a very slippery slope when you're trying to predict these East Coast lows. And when that swell direction does appear, there are so many factors that come into play. You need that low pressure system, the ECL, like whatever storm that's brewing out there, to sit perfectly in between those two land masses and stall and produce a swell that, again, from say 100 to 115 degrees. You could take 90 degrees. You could go all the way up to say 120, 125. Sometimes in a long period swell, you can also get to maybe 130, 140 and still have them wrapping on the end of surge. And that's all well and good, but we want the meatiest, the gnarliest, and the heaviest waves for the Shark Island Challenge. And it's a challenge for a reason. We don't want to just be sending people out there in fun conditions. Obviously, we need to run with what we're given in the waiting period, but at the same time, we want to see, a spectacle go down. And it's not for a world title. It's not for, points going to that, or it's not a round robin comp or a series. It's an invitational event where some of the world's best bodyboarders go ham at one of the world's most premier slabs. Coming from the wind direction, we're looking more at a westerly, west-southwest. That's perfect. You can run in southwest and northwest. Obviously, when you're looking at northwest, and you would think of the island as it does wrap in like a horseshoe with southeast to east-southeast swell hitting it, thinking that the wave is wrapping back in on itself on surge. Northwest wind can create a ruffle up the face, and that needs to be noted when looking at charts, because you would way rather a southwest wind coming across the bay and then meeting the end of the wave, coming across the island and actually holding the wave up and open it, instead of coming into the barrel and possibly clamping the wave down or creating a lot of ruffle on the face. The tides are also another factor that we wrestle with on a regular basis. For example, a lot of people within this podcast would have realised that the swell that we had in the Easter period before the waiting period opened up for the 2025 Bodyboard King Shark Island Challenge was a banger. But at the same time, it only had 3 to 4 hours in the middle of the day that would have been contestable and allowed the event to run, would not have allowed the event to run, because we obviously need 6 to 6.5 hours.
Yeah, it's just not adequate time.
It's just not adequate time. So there's so many things to kind of factor in. We are looking for a tide where you have more so a low tide possibly in the middle of the day or the mid-morning, where you can still get some heat done for, say, an hour, hour and a half in the morning, go into the low, put it on hold, and then come back to the rushing tide, the incoming tide in the afternoon, and, work your way all the way to the final. And so you would have the high tide pretty much around like 3 or 4 p.m. would be ideal, and then you know that you've got enough light left during these wintering conditions that usually, by 5 p.m. here on the East Coast in the dead of winter, it's pretty much pitch black. You would need to run the event all the way up to there. So the swell direction being east-southeast and about 100 degrees to 115, ideal. Winds definitely west to west-southwest, and bigger the tide, the better. And I guess I want to touch on the period too, because a lot of people see large, long swell periods come up the coast and their eyes light up. But unfortunately, there's only certain reefs that handle that sort of long-range swell, especially when you consider the bathymetry. How do you say it again? I can't remember. I've made an absolute word salad of that, but it's pretty much mapping out the ocean floor and thinking about the shelf that you're surfing, or the deep water slab that you're surfing, or the bommy. When you look at a bommy in deep water, you obviously want, in my opinion, long-range, long-period swell to be able to be, groomed and cleaned by prevailing offshore winds, and then to hit that deep water bommy with a huge period to draw enough water off it to make it actually barrel properly. When you think of the island, you do not need a long-period swell. You need a swell between 10 to 12 seconds, because we've noted in the past, surfing out there, if you have a large period, the first wave of the set can be great. The second and third can be absolute dog shit, just because, it still looks amazing, but very hard to ride and very dangerous as it ledges out over white rock and surge, because it draws too much water off. Right. And that happens at a lot of the slabs actually around here in Cronulla. Even Cape can be the same. So when you have a long period swell drawing too much water off, it's just not allowing enough water to actually be present, and it just makes the wave gurgle and bend in on itself too much and kind of makes it almost unsurfable. So in our opinion, the ideal swell period would be 10 to 12 seconds, could push it to 13, but again, the East Coast is a fickle beast, and Shark Island's even further fickle than that. So yeah, that really needs to be considered too. So there's definitely a lot that goes into it. But again, luckily we've got swell net in the background really helping us out. And we've also got a lot of experience on our side with Mark and Sam growing up in the area, and myself lucky enough to have surfed it a number of times. That you can kind of just tell. And when we saw this swell pop up for this period, it looked amazing because it had the 10 to 11 seconds. It had the east-south-east. Yes, there was a couple of dicey moments of winds, but there was prevailing southwest winds. And then unfortunately that low just formed differently, and we're here today speaking about it, Benny. So we've had to pull ourselves out of the gutter. We've got ourselves off suicide watch, and we'll march on for another day.
I hope you've got enough bolters left in stock, mate.
Oh, fuck, mate. Those XPAs have been that delicious. We backed out after a couple more cases. We wouldn't mind some hazies either, Captain Sensibles, you name it. They're all mother's milk to us.
Oh, goodness gracious. I asked for the simple version, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. I get so deep with it because me, Mark and Sam, like you should...
Well, you guys are so invested in it. That's why. And you're passionate about it. And as much as myself and everyone else wants to see this thing, pulled off, you guys want it more. So, there's absolutely no hate towards everything you're talking about, mate. I have one
Thanks,
question, because I'm really intrigued about, the angle side of things when you're looking at the degrees, right? You said that, it is possible around that 90-degree mark, which basically is coming in on, what you'd say is dead east, right? So
yep.
What happens in that case? Like, if let's just say all the other elements are lining up, you've got your tides, you got your wind, you got your period. What happens though if that direction is just dead east? Like, it just completely changes the wave, right?
Definitely. The biggest thing that happens when it's dead east, that the true peak, which a lot of like southeast to east southeast swells still incorporate in the wave, it kind of vanishes. And you can't sit in that normal kind of deep...
Well, you can't sit deeper, right, yeah.
Exactly. So when you're out there, you'll see these large walls coming in, and you'll always be on the wrong side of the wash if you are sitting in that, original spot. So the biggest adjustment that we would make out there when it is dead east, you're looking to take off behind White Rock. So you're almost cutting peak out of the wave, and you're looking to draw a different line. Instead of coming in behind it and getting a 4-foot wedge into an 8-foot runner, you're kind of coming down on a waterfall of 8-foot wash, and you're drawing a line to come over White Rock and then navigate surge. So east is amazing, and some of the gnarliest and greatest comps have ever been running that. If you look at the 2001 comp and the 2016 comp, they were fairly easy. 2016 actually read 82 to 86, 7 or 86,
wow.
7 degrees. Yeah, that was also the Cape Fear comp, that same period too, that black nor'easter swell that just kind of blew us out of the water. 2001 was slightly more east-south-east, but still incredibly gnarly and crazy.
Wow, 2001, one of the most memorable Shark Island events of all time.
Exactly. Won by Damien King, the Joker from Port Mac.
Yep.
Still goes down as one of the greatest wins we have ever seen. And when you look back on those swells, you would rarely see someone chipping in from the peak. It'd be more so from out. I mean, there would be growers on the peak, the kind of smaller ones, still 6-foot, grinders, but generally the sets do come a bit wider, and you will see the riders, the athletes, and just the general locals adjust on those days, knowing that you need to draw a different line. Like, if someone wants to really go back and look at a recent wave like that, actually Jack Baker, I think it's a year and a half to 2 years ago now, on his Instagram, there was a sneaky swell that popped up before we ran the challenge in 2003 that was very similar and was going more east by the moment. And he drew a perfect line into one that it was exactly what I've just described, coming down off that kind of, White Rock, chipping out the back, all the oceans behind you, all the way, kind of crescendos up and surges there. And, you just got to adjust your line differently. But that's what East would kind of serve up, I feel.
I have one more memorable moment from the 2001 event, and this is solely because I'm born and bred Victorian. There was an epic wave from Jace Hazel where he just absolutely free fell. I'm pretty sure there was a really good still spread in Riptide of it, which I had on my wall. I was just mind blown. Especially,
what a legend!
Yeah,
what
good dude.
Jason Hazel, man.
Good dude.
Yeah. Was he wearing Vipers in that shot?
He probably was, mate. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think back because I do remember it, and I was 11 at the stage, and that whole comp just blew me out of the water. Mum and Dad wouldn't let me go down. Nowhere near the water anyway, and it was such a spectacle. Still probably one of the greatest bodyboard comps that's ever run.
Well, you never know, mate. Could be beaten this year. We don't know.
Fingers and toes crossed.
Well, mate, let's now switch to, I guess, some of the build-up. Recently, you had the Bodyboarding New South Wales state titles, which kind of ran alongside and in conjunction with the trials. Like, you guys have just had a lot going on down there the last, month or so. Mate, talk us through that. Some pretty deserving champions came out of that, which will now go into the main event. Fill us in.
Yeah, no, we were stoked to work with Surfing New South Wales on that weekend, Benny. As you just said, there has been a lot going on, and the state trials held on Saturday there at Cronulla Point were a huge success. We had a nice 3 to 4 foot easterly trade swell that was just consistent throughout the day. We had a big high tide in the morning that ran into a low tide in the middle of the day around 1 o'clock, and the tide started coming back in for the finals, which was really advantageous. I think people were quite apprehensive at the start to have it at Cronulla Point because it is known usually for stand-up surfing. People that have also entered in the Shark Island Challenge previous years back in the early 2000s and into the teens, we did hold the trials there for a number of years. But, Cronulla Point's been forgotten about as, a really viable option when it comes to competition bodyboarding. I think to cater for all the different age groups and the different divisions, it held its own really well because there's bales to be had out there. There's a couple little sneaky bowls if you know how to draw a really quick line into that first reef part, and then you can milk it all the way into mousetrap. And that's a classic part of the wave where you can almost dry dock yourself onto some kanji, but if you time it properly, you can get a couple of really good little hits at the end, either reverses or like rolls or even forwards off the lip, and that can really add to your score. So on that day, it was great to commentate there with Tessa McKenna. We had Craig Haddon, Rossi, and Carl, and a lot of the crew there judging. And I think it took a lot of people by surprise, and I think Surfing New South Wales are really keen to bring the state titles back there again next year in conjunction with the trials. But the trials, unfortunately, were the polar opposite to the weather that we had on the Saturday. Again, Huey threw us a bit of a curveball. We looked to run the trials on the Sundays. It looked to be the better setup for the island on that day. They had some great waves out there in the morning on Saturday. Steve McKenzie Bullitt and his Steve Bullitt McKenzie, and his son Ocean got some really good waves out there, and they came and competed in the state titles after that. But then on the Sunday, unfortunately, some real choppy weather popped up overnight. We had a wind shift, and it went southeast. And strong southeast. We had rain. We had wind. We had angry neighbours as Tessa McKenna's speakers flared back into the residential areas. The onshore winds brought our vocals and commentary back to the neighbours. But that was a very small glitch. Overall, the boys, went absolutely ham out there for what the conditions were. Like I'm talking. And just to kind of lay this out to people, the island, in our opinion, especially from a local's opinion and a statistical opinion, because a lot of people have injured themselves or broken their back out there on the smaller days. When it is in the 2 to 3 foot range or 2 to 4 foot range, you don't have that explosion of white water around you to buffer you and your body from hitting the reef.
Yeah. Yep.
And colliding in with it. And it seems strange. You'd think on a smaller day it'd be less hectic, but really
Well,
you
there's less water. Less water when it's smaller.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, it's science, just less water. More rock, less water. And, so they were really putting they were putting their heart in their sleeves out there and going big. And two people that really stood out during the entire comp, there was definitely, a couple of really good performances. Lucas Magoni was going ham. Joey Mordo was doing really well. Liam O'Toole and Josh Cleve were the eventual victors walking through, with Josh taking out the win, which can you believe it, how much egg I had in my face at the launch party? I actually announced Liam O'Toole the winner instead of Josh Cleve, with both of them going through, which, again, it didn't matter in the long run. They were both in, but Clevey surfed a really smart heat. He actually was taking a leaf out of Michael Osler's book, and I don't know if those two staffers got together and worked out a strategy. I'm sure they did, because fuck, mate, they are some of the most competitive people I've ever ran into, those South Africans. And if you remember the 2024 challenge, Osler got a left in the final to move himself from fourth to third, collect a little bit more prize money, relegate Marley Dunn down to fourth. No one goes left out the island on a huge south swell, and no one really goes left out.
That was mental.
It was mental, and it was such a strategic move, because he knew he couldn't get a good ride, but he had to get a score to get himself up in the third. And he picked a joker out of the pack there and just said, I'm going to have a go at this. And Clevey pretty much did the same thing throughout the whole comp. He was milking lefts across the whole way across the island, almost, ripping his surl and slick apart, but making it through to different sections, getting big punchy rolls, reverses, forwards. And he was a huge standout. So Josh Cleve won it. Liam O'Toole came in at second. Really tight final. It was only, I think there might have been 2.5 or 3 points separating all four competitors. So, super grindy, gritty win. But, yeah, it was great to see Josh come out on top with, like, Liam O'Toole. Obviously, we know what he can do, and he's starting movies like Visions, and is always getting absolute kegs behind the rocket snapper. He's an OG. And Cleve in his own right too. You only got to look at his resume and the places that he's surfed and the bombs that he's got. More notably this year at Deadman's. Like, if anyone wants to go back and look at a perfectly executed bottom turn on a 12, possibly easily a 12-footer down the face, and know how to pull up on the foam ball and ride high through two insane barreling sections in front of 100-foot cliff over the northern beaches, then go check his Instagram out, because that's still one of the best waves I've seen in a very long time. And it was only fitting to see Clevey, take out the trials and push his way into the main event, because he's wanted to for a long period of time. He's got the skill, and he's just an all-round lovable bloke that you just want to be around. He's got great energy, good vibes, and seeing him at the launch party after and there with his family and his kids and him taking the win, it was all a bit of a fairy tale moment. So that was a really nice silver lining on a tough day competition.
Shot, my brew. Shots.
Oh, man. Their accent is so legit, hey? I wish I kind of spoke like it.
Mate, both very, very fitting champions to be included in that main event. Tooley, I can't speak highly enough about Tooley. I've had the pleasure of surfing with him many a times during my tenure living on the Goldie. He was one of the first guys to kind of take me under his wing for like full moon surfing at Snapper, which was epic. I think my first session out there was when I was living with Simon Ormerod. So I think it was like me, Simon, Nick, and Tooley. And Tooley was basically like a neon light out there. I mean, he's a ginger. He just stands out. But yeah, I mean, surfing at nighttime, and at Snapper when it was like 4 foot pitch black, like it's actually really calming. But at the same time, you can't see very well. So yeah, he was pretty influential in helping me out there. But man, he's a chew pig. Like, he's an absolute chew pig.
And it was quite evident too how how in tune he was with his rail and the lines he wanted to draw. You know what I mean? Like, it was very testing conditions out there, and it wasn't like you were getting sitting in the same spot and just trying to take, set after set and like build your score and build a house. You had to be on high alert out there for any sort of little wedge or any sort of, barrel or closeout bowls you could hit to try and boost your scores up. And he just seemed to do it effortlessly during the entire comp. So it showed his true class, and it's a really cool addition to have him into the comp because he's a bit of an OG. And, anyone that wants to go back and watch his surfing, I'm sure a lot of people have already, but if you haven't, go back and watch Visions. You just need to watch that and just to see who he was rubbing shoulders with, who he was booging with, and what he could do on the boog. So, yeah, really cool to have him in the comp.
You know how we use that reference, like aging like a fine wine? Like Tooley's more like a good whiskey. You know what I mean? Like he's neat. He's
Fireball
neat.
whiskey too. That little cinnamon ginger flavor.
Oh, so good. So tasty. Can't wait to see him in the main event. Mate, okay, well, let's quickly do a recap just to make sure everyone's up to speed again with where you're at and where they can, keep in touch with everything related to the Shark Island Challenge for 2025.
Sweet, Benny. Yeah, so the socials, our Instagram is probably the main point of contact. We've also got our website where it'll be listing any of the live news updates that are linked to our Instagram. It also will go over our different sponsors, the different events that we're looking to have this year. We did have the Urban Surf Bolter promo night lined up for this week. We've had to cancel that because we obviously want to have Jeff Hubbard and Jake Romero in town, along with all the other nationals, to come and compete, to come and free boog in that session. So that will also be held out at Urban Surf, and we'll definitely get some information out about that. That's really cool to come out, just have a beer and just watch the pros go absolutely ham. Anyone can attend at that given time. So please don't hesitate to make your way out to Sydney Olympic Park when we call that on. The waiting period goes all the way till the 30th of June with the possibility to extend it to the 30th of July.
We've got time. We've got time.
Still got time. We've still got time, baby. It's not counting down just yet. So, we're going to be holding tight at this stage. Only as I've been on the phone to you, Ben, I've just copped about 20 different messages from the boys in the group chat saying that Friday has kind of flared up again, but the last thing I saw, it still kind of looked a little bit north in the forecast in the afternoon, so we'll have to have a quick chat about that. But yeah, at this stage, we aren't going to be running on the Thursday and Friday. Still looking at a swell towards the end of May, between the 28th to the 30th. But again, that is a low percentage play. We will be talking with Swellnet on and off, so we are getting that professional advice in the background, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And look, if anyone is around for the challenge, please come down and say hi. You've also got a base, like a headquarters at Ridges, where we'll be streaming Ridges Cronulla, the hotel that will be streaming the event live. It'll be through Sporting News' YouTube once again. They've been kind enough, Trent Beatty and his team, to come on and provide us the webcast through their YouTube. We'll be working with Chris Smith and his production team that have been doing a lot of the WSL comps here in Australia. Smithy. It's a proper broadcast that's going to hopefully mirror a WSL standard. We've got, Brendan Newton on the mic with myself. We'll have Dane Woods on the boat. We'll hopefully have Alex Leon in the commentary, Toby Player, Benny P.
Can we expect a custard tart review from Woodsy mid Shark Island Challenge?
We might have to get Jezebel's Bakery in Cronulla Mall, just to, or the Cronulla Bakehouse, just to sort us out with a couple of delicious skirts with a bit of custard in it, and we'll get him to review it on the boat. There'll be a lot of jiggle on there, a bit of swell out there. So. How good are those custard tart reviews, eh? Hats off to Woodsy and the boys.
I don't even like custard tarts, but it's interesting to get the feedback. It's good to know.
It's actually crazy because it's turned me. Like I used to be against them too, but now since I've had a couple from those reviews, I'm like, I could get used to this. Like, especially when you find a nice one. And I just want to clarify, Woodsy Woodsy might flare up at this, but I believe it's nutmeg, not cinnamon, on the top of these custard tarts. Nutmeg,
Right.
not cinnamon. Yeah,
Wow.
just for Woodsy's knowledge.
Also, shout out to Brendo. What an absolute madman in the water. Like that recent swell, obviously his little clip is plastered all over the World Wide Web of him copping an absolute battering trying to come in with housing in hand, board shorts looking like they're about to fall off. And wow, it made me feel ill, to be brutally honest.
Oh man, to get in the cage can be shocking in an EFL. And I think, even like, to get in's one thing, but just to watch Brendo swim out there on the first day, like, because I sat on the ski, I drove the ski for Sam while he shot, and unfortunately, like it wasn't really bodyboarding worthy. I mean, you could definitely give it a go, and like Jack Baker was really trying to go hard, but just because of all the water moving and where you couldn't sit, unfortunately, you couldn't really get the 10 to 12 foot insiders that you wanted to be sucking up on the reef. A lot of the tow teams were snagging up the bigger ones, and even Dylan Shapes. How have I just forgotten Dylan's last name?
Longbottom, yeah.
Yeah, gave Jack a couple of toes, and because of all the chop and and all the wind affected surge up the wave, I guess he couldn't even throw a bodyboard into it. So then to see Brendo just out there swimming with fins and his boardies and just a camera and duck diving under these 15 footers, it was. Let's put it this way, I was very glad I was on the ski and I wasn't in his position. It just shows you what kind of mindset he has and how free he feels in the ocean, and just what a waterman he is. Like people know him to be, one of the world's greatest big wave bodyboarders, but then in his later years, he's just applied that to his ability to shoot photos out in those heavy sessions. So, yeah, he's just a sucker for the juice. Like, he loves the juice, and he loves sunning his perineum from time to time. Don't tell him I said that, but yeah, just is a big fan of the old perineum sunning. Hope you like that one, Brenda.
All right. Well, mate, I reckon that's us done. Thank you so much for your time, mate. I know you are an incredibly busy man, juggling, family, event management, your own business, and just being an absolute core lord on that part of the coastline, mate. So, can't thank you enough. It's always an honour to have you as a guest on the potty, and wish you all the best for what is surely to turn out to be a significantly amazing event, mate.
Thank you so much, Benny. Again, thanks for having us on, and really appreciate you doing the hard yards, get the info out there, and love the potties, keep them coming. Love the creams you won recently. Really back that, you know what I mean? Like, really back that. I want to see that guy Bergen again. It was really interesting to hear what had happened with his eyes. I had no idea. So,
good old bung eyes.
Yeah, good old bung eyes. Man, he would have to be like one of the better tech big wave bodyboarders that Australia's produced in a very long time. You can only remember back to the 2016 challenge when he did that closeout roll on like an 8-footer.
Yeah.
He's a madman. He is a pocket rocket, bro. Like, what is he made of?
Well, I think with Lockie in particular, a lot of people probably took attention away from his big wave stuff when he was really just pushing the ABA tour, because he was so driven to succeed competitively that the focus became on just, that tour stuff. Even though he was still chasing big stuff, I think the big stuff kind of almost took a bit of a backseat and didn't get the notoriety it deserved.
It definitely deserves it. He deserves much more than, and as you were just stating, what he's kind of getting. I think he's almost the forgotten soul in that bodyboarding. I can't wait to see him back on the boot, because I think people are going to realise what a maniac he is, eh?
Well, hopefully it's not too far away. I know myself, Shano, obviously his major sponsor, Jennings, we're all putting the hard word on him to make sure he's ready to go once he's got that 2020 vision back.
Giddy up, get him off the beach and onto the berg.
All right, mate. We'll look forward to catching up again real soon. Take care.
Cheers, Benny. Speak to you.